So, Aizawa is kind of a meme, more or less. He's largely remembered as a forced final villain with some contrivances behind his role in the story. I've already made a video kind of talking about this very thing. That's not really what I'm going to bring up today. Instead, I want to touch on the somewhat unexplored depth behind his ideology. Now, there's this phenomenon called nepotism, defined as the practice of, among those with power or influence, of favoring relatives or friends. In fictional stories, every now and then, you see the exploration of the idea of hard work versus natural talent or privilege. It's occasionally common for the protagonist to embody the underdog position in the story, targeting people that are degrees above them in power. However, Aizawa is an interesting case of someone who embodies both the concept of hard work and privilege. And to explain why, we need to bring up his father, Mr. I Hate Charisma. Now, if I'm being honest, Kurosawa is probably one of my favorite characters in the Yakuza series, definitely high on the villains list. And this is largely due to his backstory. This man had a very tough life before he eventually became the 7th chairman of the Omi Alliance. He was a part of an extremely low-tier family and had to endure a ton of hustle, including taking the blame for a failed job and literally eating shit. It was through him grinding and being efficient at his job that he eventually came to a position where he was declared the chairman of the Alliance, which is the basis behind his resentment towards people like Kiryu, Watase, Saejima, and Katsuya, described by him as likable and charismatic people who had the ability of winning people's hearts and make them follow them even through the depths of hell. Kurosawa did not have the luxury of having people who could follow him. In fact, throughout his life, he's had to kill some that could be considered his associates like his boss. Once he finally reached the highest point he could aim for, he used that power to leave an impact on the Yakuza war and fight against the embrace of charismatic figures who only breed more incompetence instead of cold hard efficiency that made him as tough and influential as he is right now. But while Kurosawa had to start from the bottom, Aizawa started from the top. He's the son of the 7th chairman of the Omi Alliance, and with his father on the verge of death, he's now gifted with the most powerful position in the Yakuza world. However, as we learn later on, Aizawa is opposed to the idea of staying on top via privilege. He believes that the strongest men are the ones that should be at the top, not the ones who have family ties. I do believe that his stance does indeed expose an ugly side to the patriarchal system in the Yakuza world. We saw in Yakuza 2 how Daigo, a young and rash leader of a street gang, was granted the position of the future chairman of the Tojo clan simply for being the son of the previous patriarch of the Dojima family. This decision has brought its fair share of highs and lows, the biggest low being his slip up in Yakuza 4 in an attempt to regain the billions of dollars that the Tojo clan was in need for after the countless losses they had to endure over the years. We've also seen Ryuji, a troublemaking and spontaneous meathead on the verge of taking over the Omi Alliance, all starting with his ties with the Goryu clan, a prestigious clan from the Omi Alliance. And now we're witnessing the case with Aizawa, a not so smart, easily emotional, and self-proclaimed punk who is about to become the next leader of the Omi Alliance, all because his father is about to die and had the power to leave his control to his son. I'm not sure if this played any role in his beliefs, but it's possible that him knowing what his father endured over the years gave him an even bigger awakening. He saw how Kurosawa had to prove with his hard work and discipline that he would reach the top, so seeing himself being granted the privilege that his father had to grind for, meanwhile he had to put little to no effort to it, he was enlightened to the inherent flaw of the system in place. It's for this reason that I find his conviction at the end of the series to be interesting, because in the end, he doesn't aim to have the most powerful position in the Yakuza series. Instead, he just simply wants to be the strongest man, something that he willingly chose to work hard for it. I'm not entirely sure how naturally gifted he is in terms of physical attributes, but he claims to have worked hard behind the scenes, and Morinaga said to him that he had no chance of ever beating Kiryu. Just like that, defeating the legendary dragon of Dojima became his ultimate goal, the one thing that would put him in the position of the strongest Yakuza. Aizawa, if he really wanted to, could have killed Kiryu in a much more efficient fashion. He could have easily shot him with a firearm or even used the sword that was right next to him, but he refused. He wanted a fair fist fight with Kiryu to prove that he was stronger, and whether or not he cared about being the leader of the Omi Alliance, it would still be a feasible justification for him being the most powerful position in the Yakuza world, at least according to his own ideology. This, in a way, sort of creates a contrast between him and his father. Kurosawa started from the bottom and climbed his way up into the most privileged position he could be. On the other hand, Aizawa started from a place of privilege and chose to reduce himself to the bottom in order to grind his way through. But of course, Kiryu has a different point of view. He agrees with the notion that people are born with natural talent, but he doesn't believe that that alone will make you the strongest. Instead, they must also overcome the boundaries that they are met with, and while this can be interpreted as physical limitations, this can also be interpreted from a mental viewpoint. Kiryu is someone who is perceived as a charismatic person who wins people's hearts, which is viewed by Aizawa as a gift that he has. but it's not something that he obtained without any endurance. Kiryu over the years has had to face many harsh experiences, including deaths and betrayals of people he loved and looked up to. It's through him fighting to maintain his conviction that he is capable of winning people's hearts so seamlessly, something that not everyone would be able to endure in order to reach that point. It's why he accepted Aizawa's proposal to fight him. He established himself as an obstacle that Aizawa had to overcome in order to move on to the next level, and when the fight ended and the results were clear, it proved one thing: that there are many things Aizawa still needed to overcome in order to defeat Kiryu. There's this brief moment when Kiryu took off his shirt and it showed that he had a bloody wound, which illustrated two things. One, Kiryu was a man that even in a physically critical condition, he somehow manages to stand up and face whatever challenge was upon him, which is a level of empirical achievement, one obtained through repeated confrontations. The second thing it illustrated was how, even injured, Aizawa still managed to lose against Kiryu. Keeping in mind that all this time, Kiryu was fighting the same battle orchestrated by Aizawa and Kurosawa, and despite all of the adversities, he still managed to stay on top, which showed a gap between both of them, one that Aizawa still needed time and experience if he ever wanted to surpass it. Whenever I witness the discourse on shonen anime, I've noticed that a lot of people tend to glorify and idolize this idea of hard work beating natural talent, which is why characters like Rock Lee from Naruto tend to be worshipped, while characters that have a bit more edge in a few areas are less respected, which has been the basis for a lot of the criticism towards Deku that I've seen over the years. And while I understand the points of view in these communities, I also find their perspectives to be rather shallow and doesn't address the complexities that come from people who reach the top. Yakuza 5, I feel like, has a more nuanced exploration on the topic of nepotism. It's not about making either the antagonist or protagonist the full embodiment of either the ideas of hard work or nepotism. It's not even about highlighting how either approaches of reaching the top is inherently good or bad. It's about showing the flaws present in a system that favors family ties, while also exposing the naiveties from the people who only observe the people that are on the top of the chain without yet knowing what they've had to endure. Even people who have reached the top through nothing but hard work aren't always the people that are the most idolized, which is proven by Kurosawa, someone that would instill influence only through his powerful position and not through his likability, which is why in the end, despite abusing his power to get what he wanted, he still lost against the charismatic people he resented for winning people's hearts. It's because of this that I take an interest in both Kurosawa and Aizawa. I think they explore some interesting themes, and despite the common belief that Aizawa being the final villain was forced, I do believe that his climax was warranted. In a lot of ways, it's kind of a payoff to a lot of what happened in the series. Daigo especially, I feel like, played a role in the story that's thematically crucial in little ways. Despite being the reference point for the innate flaw in having a system that benefits the ones with family ties, Daigo also proves the argument that Kiryu proposed to Aizawa. Daigo had to endure and overcome many obstacles in order to become the giga-brain leader that he is right now. In Yakuza 2, 3, and 4, he was still in many ways new and reckless with his decisions, and it was through him learning and overcoming those barriers that he managed to play a very important role in the story of Yakuza 5. So much of what happens was his doing in the background, and he's only continued to become smarter even up until Yakuza 7. So with that said, I hope this video helped you in your understanding of the character of Aizawa. I know it's been a while since I've uploaded a video, probably like 3 weeks. To be fair, I was busy with exams. Don't worry, I passed all of them, so I'm cool. Anyway, hope you all have a good day, and goodbye.